Hi everybody, how you doing? A lot of big doings regarding the Coliseum JPA Authority, but before we get to them, I'm going to say, hey, welcome. Great to see you. It's been a little bit. But before we get to them, I'm going to say, hey, welcome. Great to see you. It's been a little bit. And the reason why it's been a little bit is very simple. This is the second straight month that the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum Joint Powers Authority has canceled its meeting. And as I pointed out to Oakland at-large Councilmember Rebecca Kaplan just a few minutes ago, what's going on with the work product? Things are stacking up, and this, some news people might be interested in topical reasons, but you miss the real story as far as I'm concerned. The real story is of an organization that is undercapitalized. I'm talking about the Joint Powers Authority, and therefore, because of it, understaffed. It is heavily over-politicized, and it has people on it who simply choose not to be there. In fact, Rebecca Kaplan is one of a minority of people who is really active in keeping the Joint Powers Authority going. It is quite literally being ran on spit and baling wire. And I'm not saying money isn't available. It is. That's why I gave the presentation of how the JPA could establish its own tax increment financing zone under Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District legislation for California. But the overall problem with the JPA is that few care about it. Okay? So you're not going to have a professional output if no one cares to put in 100% professional effort. That's what's happening. That's the real story. And it should be considered scandalous. But even if others don't consider it scandalous, I do. And that's enough for me to go to action. That's why I'm explaining to you just this little action that the meeting's being rescheduled. This is something the JPA should do via a live stream. It shouldn't have you searching around to find out what's going on with the meeting. There should be a televised explanation of what's going on. There's not. And then again, there's the work product that I referred to earlier. This is tragic, okay? I mean, really tragic. And you got to ask, when is the organization going to get religion? I have determined that it's not. I have determined that it has to be pushed along. There has to be an effort to draft a resolution to turn it into a stadium authority. And I'm going to introduce my version in a very few days. There has to be an effort to root out the problem that's created because AASEG, the African American Sports Entertainment Group, is really the Bobbitt Sports Entertainment Group. And what Ray Bobbitt has done to his partners is not unlike what Mark Zuckerberg did to Eduardo Sandoval and the Winklevoss twins in starting Facebook. That's a black eye on the JPA for even allowing that situation to exist, because the JPA is setting up a black firm, quote unquote. I say firm because it's acting more like, well, a business entity than a firm. For example, who's the secretary for the AESCG, right? Where's the staff, right? What's happening? Where's the progress line, right? Where's all of that? It's nowhere. And it shouldn't be set up as a situation where someone African American could say, see, that's just another example of us not doing things right, even though they would be correct. It has to be an example of us doing things wrong, because it would be correct. It has to be an example of us doing things right if you're going to hang out the moniker that this is African American. I've talked to Ray about that for years now, and he hasn't listened really to anybody other than his own counsel. And now it's a disaster because he has an active lawsuit that is about to go into discovery period. And the JPA minders know about this. And you have been content to let it just sort of hang out there. Yet it does call into question the capacity of the organization to deliver on what it says it can deliver on. And the only way to straighten it out is to bring the partners in. It's a really easy fix. Bring the partners in and straighten it out and start the arguing over who gets deck chairs on the Titanic by simply not making the Titanic just that. Okay? This is a problem bigger than the roots issue as far as I'm concerned, because it has to do with how the JPA operates. Now, you would say the problem is as big as the root situation because it has to do with how the JPA operates. And we both would be correct. Absolutely correct. It also is another, and it's something else too. It's another example of how the city of Oakland doesn't do things correctly now. We used to be the gang that shot straight decades ago. Now we're the gang that can't seem to find our way out of the room collectively. All right. And it's not that these problems can't be fixed. Again, it all comes down to simple lack of will. The majority of A's fans that are involved in this do not live in Oakland. So they really don't have a dog in the hunt like you would like them to. Raider fans, well, scattered to the four winds of the world, primarily still in the Bay Area, a good portion in Nevada because they've been activated, not so much because they relocated, but there's been some relocation because of the pandemic. And the internet has helped ignite a worldwide fan base of Raider fans. It's only a matter of time before they start traveling well, which happens when teams win consistently. And then the Athletics are, well, building their ballpark in Las Vegas, like it or not. But what's happening with that? Well, hey, they're back at the table, yeah. But it's also a parallel paths issue. The city of Oakland is not exclusive. And just because the A's are at the table doesn't mean that we have the opportunity to blow it. And yet I fear that we will. I wish Oakland Mayor Chang Tao's chief of staff, Lee Hansen, would curb her rhetoric. It's not helping anyone. It might gin up a few people who have no idea what's going on, but that's precisely the problem. It's a smokescreen. And at that, it points to unprofessionalism and cattiness. And those are the two problems that the operation, I'm talking about the Joint Powers Authority, has been plagued by product of the administration and certain political operatives, some unseen, that are involved in this. Again, political operatives. That has to stop. Okay? That has to stop. Hey, Zach says, appreciate you and your insight, brother. Thank you very much. Says, I'm definitely excited. Says, Viva Las Vegas. Okay, so thank you. So let's get to the matter of the problem at hand that, for all practical purposes, got us here. All right. And as Goldfinger would say in the movie Goldfinger, I will show you. In fact, if you can you name the actor that played Goldfinger within like 10 seconds? In other words, without looking it up, I'll give you a hint. His first name starts with a G. And if you've never seen Goldfinger, you gotta see it. Okay, you just have to see it. All right. So what I'm doing right now, you say, what are you really doing, Zenny? This is what I'm really doing. I'm showing you this page right here. That goes to this agenda. This is the agenda, okay? Let me clear that. All right. It says you're invited to a Zoom webinar. All right. So you scroll down here. Whoops, that's not working like I want it to work, is it? So guess what? Since it's, yeah, it is. There it is. This is a doc file rather than a PDF file. Okay, so here we go. Remote attendance was set for David, our great commissioner, David Halbert, who's at the Scott Haggerty Heritage House, 4501 Pleasanton Street. And so he's, as he calls it, the Scott Haggerty Heritage House. So we would have roll call and then open forum, approval of minutes and the reports, which to get the second quarter budget report, and then an explanation regarding the sound amplification code, and then Levy was to serve alcoholic beverages in the plaza. Okay, in the plaza, which is a big deal. And then we were going to go to a closed session. So it wasn't a long meeting to begin with, but what's going on, if you take this meeting, right, that I just showed you, okay, if you take this meeting, hold on a second, I'll get to your questions. If you take this meeting that I showed you, right, then this other meeting, let me show you what's going on here with that one. And I think you'll agree once you see this that Oakland, we have a problem. Note a play on words with Houston, right? But Oakland, we have a problem. And the problem is that we had, okay, this. Present, stop screen. And this is we're 2 months behind. We're 2 months behind. Originally, the Oakland Roots, and I'll give props to Casey Pratt putting out on his Twitter account, and so I'll show that. But we're supposed to have the Oakland Roots on the agenda in their site. We don't have that. Okay. And then, of course, there's the matter of a SCG. We don't have that. And there's the matter of, as I understand it, according to Scott McKibben, the city of Oakland did not respond to an invitation for the indoor football team called the Bay Area Panthers, remember the Oakland Panthers, to be at the arena. Scott told me that. That should be on the agenda to find out what's going on. All right. And see, the main problem with all of this is the JPA has one effective staff member and an executive director. Henry Gardner is the executive director, our esteemed former city manager. Renee Savage is the lone staff person. One. So this is an awful situation to put her in, having to deal with how to rearrange this situation. Now, to her credit, Rebecca Kaplan has been the third staff member, but she is also not just an elected official, but a major elected official. She is one of our council members. The council member should not be doing staff work. That should be left to staff. But there's no staff. And the other question is, did the city, in raiding the JPA for 9/11 monies that it could certainly have found someplace else, rob the JPA of adding additional staff to make it effective? My argument is yes. And that's why I was not, and I'm still not in favor of what the city did. For 2 or 3 million, it could have very much started with building staff for Henry Gardner, having somebody who can staff the meetings in assistance with Mr. Gardner and others, making sure there's a quorum by making phone calls and texts, sending out video reminders that the meeting is going to occur on the dates that it's supposed to occur. In other words, setting up the veil that this is a true organizational function of importance. Right now, what's called the Coliseum Joint Powers Authority does not send out that message. The reason why these meetings keep getting pushed back is simply because the JPA is understaffed. There's no subterfuge going on or anything like that. It's simply understaffed. That's what's happening. Sure, there are problems with all these issues. We know much of what they are. There's a lot that we don't know. We can't know because there are matters that have come up in closed session. I'm not supposed to know about those matters. I'm not saying that we do or don't, but the default is that we don't know. Okay? So the default is that we don't know. Nobody of note is dealing with this issue other than the guy you're looking at right now. And that's not the way it should be. Because there are people on the mayor's staff who could jump in and help. Right? Think about the whole of people on any number. You have 2 council members that supposedly, ostensibly, are responsible for the Coliseum. At least they say that they are. Kevin Jenkins is one. Where's Kevin? Where's his staff? All right. The other's Treva Reed. And yes, she's not on it, but hey, it's District 7, which is in her district, right? Okay. Should that be the way it should be? My argument is no. My argument is with a healthy staff, and this is what I tried to explain to Rebecca a number of times. When you have a healthy staff, and I mean healthy in terms of complement of staff, I should say, these problems are far less likely to happen. But and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir that's been paying attention, what few of you, this has been the norm. Meetings like this canceled going back to last year, a constant difficulty in producing a quorum. Just simply producing a quorum. It is taken on the average, by my recollection, about an additional 30 minutes before a quorum, and the average, well, I would say 20 minutes, to be fair, on the average, before a full quorum showed up where the Joint Powers Authority could start its meeting. If you're enthusiastic about a board, you show up on time. And even if it's remote, and if you're someplace else and can't be there, and the new remote adjustment rules are not in your favor, make noise about it and have a legislative adjustment so that you can do the remote appearance. Because this is out of hand. Okay? Think about it. This is the second straight month. I mean, think about this. This is the second straight month. Second straight month where we've had a situation where, there's been no meeting. We had a whole chunk of last year where there was no meeting, no meeting, meeting, no meeting. And yet when the meetings were finally held, there wasn't any evidence that we were taking items that were backlogged and dealing with them at the meeting. Nothing. All right. And so we leave Renee to handle all of this. And she can't do it alone. All right. It is wrong to ask one person to handle all the universe of activities that need to be done. Henry needs to ask for volunteers. He needs to go to the University of San Francisco's sport management program, contact my friend Dan Rasher. We started sports business simulations together. Make a deal with him for internship opportunities with the esteemed Oakland Alameda County Joint Powers Authority manager. That'd be Henry Gardner. I have called for this again and again and again. All I'm trying to do is stop this city from looking stupid, from looking disorganized, from looking like it's disinterested in getting the matter of facilities management right. As I told any number of people, as I said to the JPA last year, the JPA is not in the sports business. The JPA is in the facilities management business. Yes, it impacts sports, but the JPA does not own sports teams. Just because they're in the room with the A's doesn't mean they're in a sports business. Why? Because what's the discussion? The lease, which underscores the fact that the JPA is in the facilities ownership and management business. And the JPA has to understand what it means to stay in its lane and do more than stay in its lane, do its lane well. Set out the mission of being the best stadium authority, which is really what it's trying to be, but it's acting out of compliance with its current charge in the world. I mean, what's going on here is absolutely ridiculous, okay? It just is. All right? Hopper says, we'll soon find out if Fisher and Oakland can come to terms on a lease extension, but I'm not optimistic. At this point, the simple fact that they're at the table means that something good could happen with it. It should indeed, it should be just like the Raiders situation, where ultimately the Raiders wound up playing in the Coliseum all the way up until the last game before they moved to Las Vegas and started work at Allegiant Stadium. That's the way it should be. Meanwhile, the way it should be for Oakland is fashioning an organizational tool to recover sports franchises, either by expansion or by relocation. Oakland has not done any of those. And I'm not content with the mayor saying we're doing. It's always we're, and it's the total political habit. I don't know if you remember the Batman movie that was made by Tim Burton, but Billy D. Williams played Harvey Dent. And there's a scene where there's so much crime in Gotham City, he's literally taking phone call after phone call. You know, they didn't have cell phones in those days, right? Like that, okay? And the line that Harvey Dent says is, I know, we're working on it. You could take that line in that scene and put Chang Tao in that scene. And it would apply precisely to how she and other elected officials address problems today. We are working on it. Well, it's not all about you. And I might add that Harvey Dent's not appointed. He's actually the equivalent in Batman to the district attorney, right? Who in our case is elected. Another story. But in his case, well, actually, no, he's elected too. I take that back. So the comparison is sound across the board. Politician to politician. We are working on it. The sign of over politicization. There's no staff to cover for you. Or if you like, no one to blame. Hey, whose fault is it? Well, we hired this person. Maybe we need to get somebody else. So what does this mean? Does it mean we have to fire the elected officials? Well, we have to fire them from their jobs, yeah, with the JPA. We have to have a different structure. Okay, not dramatically different, but one that produces staff. There's only ASM Global. Hello to my friend Doug Thornton. It was great to see you, by the way. Doug Thornton is EVP with ASM Global, who is the Superdome manager who saved the Superdome. You can learn about him if you just type Doug Thornton Zenny62. You can see my video interviews, including the one that I did with him at the Media Center for Super Bowl 58 last weekend. Actually, last week. It's a great time. Um, and I'm glad I mentioned Doug Thornton. Doug Thornton is a symbol of doing things right. Okay. Under his watch, the Superdome runs like a clock. You don't hear about the kind of rancor that we have, the problems that we have. Everything runs as it should. And so, what ASM Global is doing at the Superdome, from the perspective of facilities management and events, is being replicated quite well under Nicole Strange. But wherein lay the problem is the layer above, and that's us. That's the JPA. You would say, why do I say us, even though I'm not on it? Because I care. Because I care. That's why. Okay? All right? It says, what's your opinion on where they play until? My opinion is that the Athletics need to see what the city of Oakland offers and determine if that's best for them and then take it if it is. And I think give the city some additional points for being, the home, well, now the previous home, technically, place with desire to close out appropriately and then move on to Las Vegas. I think that's the way it should be done. Okay. Now, if the city comes in and says, hey, we want an expansion team or anything else like that, and doesn't want to move off that, as opposed to my concern is, hey, we need the money. I'm saying I'm talking about the Coliseum. The Coliseum needs the money. Okay. So hold on a second, folks. Thanks, folks. Sorry about that. And thanks for the question. So at any rate, point I'm making is the Coliseum needs the money. So you start there. And 81 games between concession sales and all the other spending flows that go with baseball, particularly when you have a contest that's well attended, like the Athletics versus the Giants, or the Athletics versus the Yankees. You get the idea. That money comes to add up pretty quick. All right, regardless of what Lee Hansen might say. All right. Hopper says it's all Fisher's fault. It's not true. But if I can sell it, then Oakland city government is off the hook. Yeah. Gravity Fallout Pine says, I think Reno or Salt Lake City, would be the best, because I think Vegas is going to want the peak team, not our young 100 loss team. And Reno, Salt Lake City still starts the fan base building. I have to say something about this idea that Las Vegas is getting Oakland Athletics light. If you are able to command nearly $800 million in revenue year one, I don't care what anybody says, that changes your behavior. It changed the behavior of the Raiders. The Raiders are worth $6 billion now. They arguably have put on, if not then one of the most successful Super Bowls in history. Give the Raiders credit. Give Mark Davis credit, okay? And I say this because some of the same media types that are squawking about the Athletics now were saying the same thing about the Raiders. The same thing. Okay, we get it. Why don't you talk about Oakland government? And why are you so easy on Oakland government? And yet in other cities, hey, they do real hard and fast news. They ask questions that are tough. It's not so much you ask a question that's tough because it's tough, but because it's the question that needs to be asked. That's why. All right. Hooper says, take the money and run. Don't pass up the opportunity. Um, and then something else. Let me just straighten out one little issue here, folks, while I'm doing that. But yeah, so the, the purpose of a sports stadium authority is to do what the city of Oakland is charged with doing with respect to the athletics. Okay. And so, hold on a second. I had Casey Practice texted me with, he said, something stinks and it's pretty obvious where the stench is coming from. So, since he texted me, I think I'll just invite him to come on and spit it if he wants. There. Okay. And then one more. Extend the invitation to Mr. Dixon. Now, Casey, if you want to come on camera and say that, boom, there you are, my friend. So at any rate, Hooper says, take the money and run. Don't pass up the opportunity. Yeah, I mean, then Gravity Falls said what they said. Okay. So let me get back to this situation for a second here. Or basically, and then get rid of that. And there I did that. Okay. Now, he thinks something stinks. And this is why it'd be great if Casey came on for a second, because there are a lot of things that stink. Okay. I mean, pick it, right? There's so many, as Jar Jar Binks might say, Appaloosa episodes of so many problems here that they defy, they boggle the mind. They really do. And I think what I'm going to do is go back to Twitter and see if I can get one of his tweets here. Now, Gary Thrash says, I think there's plenty of blame to go around. The city of Oakland, John Fisher, Major League Baseball, all of them. The whole situation is a hot mess. Well, that's true. But again, that's why it's incumbent upon the Joint Powers Authority to have its act together. Because if you're dealing with, a hot mess between this organization over here in the A's and the Oakland Roots over there and Coliseum Way partners over, which is John Fisher and company over here, and so on, it really helps if you, as the Joint Powers Authority, have your act together. Why? Because you're really at the center of all this. Why? Because you manage the facility. That's why. Okay. Thrash says, I think there's plenty of blame to go around. I read that already. Thought that was a new thing. This was a desire. Okay. So at any rate, heard a blink, saw a blink there. Let me go to Twitter, as I said I should, and see if there's any comment there that Casey put out that I can simply just mention because he wants to say. Okay, so at any rate, here we go. All right. I will show his tweets here so that I can essentially give voice to what he is putting out there in text that I believe to some degree he wants echoed here. So I'm going to zoom in on this like so. Um, Casey said he'd come in. He says not now. He says he's cooking. Now he's not making, well, he might be making breakfast for his wife. It's 10:04 a.m. I don't know. But he says he's cooking. I don't think he means that kind of cooking. I think he's working on a story. But at any rate, here is, and I'm going to expand this in terms of size more. Okay. See if I can go a little bit more. This is his view. All right. Now, this is Casey Pratt's view. Me just one more time. It'd be great if I could do that one more time. Yeah. You see that? Okay. If you can't, let me see if I can do this. Let me see if I can get away with one more expansion of this. That's a good one. Don't you agree? Okay. Now, the county dragged its feet on the Malibu site. Well, the county and the city, really, Casey. And now the Coliseum is stuck in the all too familiar JPA spin cycle. The Roots have no home in 2025 at this point. Jonathan Camos says today's meeting between Oakland Roots and Alameda County Coliseum Authority is canceled on short notice. I think, Jonathan, that's inaccurate. It should simply say the JPA meeting was canceled, period, because it wasn't only the Roots situation that's left on the table. A number of items were left on the table, which points to mismanagement. So let's clean this up and stop the single. And I mean, it's desirable for anybody to want to focus on one little issue, right? But again, I tell anyone, even if you won't listen, I will grab your ear and say, hey, in a friendly way. Hey, it's about the JPA, which should be a t-shirt. Hey, it's about the JPA, okay? Today's meeting between Oakland Roots and Oakland County Coliseum Authority was canceled on short notice, was waiting for an hour to join the webinar. It comes one day after A's met with city officials. Under negotiation day with price in terms of payment for Roots. That's closed session, okay? And that's closed session. But hey, give Jonathan credit because that's the Oakland Roots are his focus, and he does a good job at it. So be it. And then Casey, 38 minutes ago, just about a minute before I went live, wrote, interesting that news of the Oakland Roots plans for the Coliseum in 2025 got leaked. Then days later, the A's want back at the table despite no previous interest. There's no connection between those two, Casey. I'm sorry. I can't ride with you on that one, but I'll finish reading this. And suddenly this meeting to button up final details of the Roots was canceled. Interesting indeed. Okay. Now, Casey, I'm going to get out of my head and try to get into what I think his head might be. And I believe Casey is implying that the Oakland A's are somehow trying to sandbag the Oakland Roots being at the Coliseum. And I don't think that's a sandbagging so much as, again, the Joint Powers Authority being so damn political, Casey, okay, that they put the Roots into this situation because they're upset that the A's are relocating. All right, as opposed to handling it a professional way, which is, hey, look, until further notice, like they really are going bye-bye. The Oakland A's have a lease with us for at least the next year, and we need to treat them accordingly as the largest tenant that we have at the stadium, which is the case. All right, they're bringing in multiple events day after day after day after day. And so the JPA's function should be to help the Oakland Athletics promote their contests and make sure that as many people come to the contests as possible. That should be the JPA's function, in addition to making sure that its part of the leasehold is taken care of, and by that, the stadium. That's it. All right. The rest is conversation. Okay. The rest is conversation. This is about running a stadium authority, not about politics or how people feel about things or angels and devils on their shoulders. This is a professional activity. And what I'm tired of is we get the opposite too much. That's how, all right, too much, all right? But this is the agenda, all right? Executive, look, this is all not done, Casey. Open forum, we didn't do that. Very important to do open forum. Approval minutes. Well, hey, we haven't had any minutes to approve, all right? Reports. Executive director's report, not done. Second quarter budget report, not done. Hey, where are we? Money wise, right? Sound amplification code, not done. Levy to serve alcoholic beverages in plaza, not done. General manager's report, not done. And then there's closed session, okay? This is agency negotiator, Henry Gardner, Joint Powers Authority, and then Nicole Strange, general manager, AAG, all right? But this is all regarding, not all, but for the most part regarding the roots. Okay? But those aren't the only problems, okay? All right. And then Casey says it's easy to ask the questions when you already know the answers. Yeah, the JPA is mismanaged. All right. Mismanaged. Okay. Oh, and then I got to point this out. He says, if you follow Howard Terminal Plants closely, this should look familiar. Well, yeah. I'll save that for another time. That's another mess. All right. Whew, okay. Again, all this is going on because the JPA is understaffed. You understand? The JPA is understaffed. You can only deal with so much. And again, I'm just going to say this right now. I am beginning to wonder if Henry Gardner health-wise is okay. Henry's old enough to be my father. I'm caregiving for my mom. She's got 10 years on Henry, maybe something like that. Okay. They're in the ballpark. So what's going on with Henry? And then if Henry can't make the meetings, why isn't there an assistant director? Okay. Why not? This is what you do when you have a true functioning professional organization. We don't have one. And ultimately, this is on Nate and Rebecca. I hate to say it, but it is. This is why I've tried to tell them. Take yourself out of the equation. Put yourself in the oversight place, not the work place. You quite literally have to make sure the organization is going. That is not your job because it starts to butt up against corruption laws that we have when you're sitting in rooms with developers, when you're holding behind closed door meetings, and then other meetings with people like, the Oakland Roots got involved because they immediately took meetings with Treva Reed. Now we know that developers pay politicians to help them with their campaigns. All right. But if you're going to have that activity, and there is, you have to have staff for organizations like the Joint Powers Authority to appropriately separate the all too happy to assist the politician developer from the activities that involve the expenditures of taxpayer dollars to benefit a private organization. Even if it's just staff working on behalf of the Roots endeavors, that is still a public paid set of people working to assist a private organization. Even if you have the Oakland A's pay the staff of the city, it's still the A's paying government staff. The A's don't own the staff. It's still that still remains the case. So you need an appropriate level of staff, really paid on its own and its own dollar flows, so that these lines are not so easily crossed. Right now, they are all too easily crossed. Understand? All too easily crossed. We have to straighten it out. All right, let me get some more comments here. Let's see here. Gravity Fallout Pine says, yeah, they could have built in Oakland at any time in the past 30 years. How? I agree with you. But when you look back, and I don't have your face here to talk with you. That's why I hate text. But the politics always got in the way. And we've always been a piecemeal organization. If you think about the history of the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum complex, be it as board president when George Ucasin was president of the board, right? Or in its current iteration now, which was created in 1996, really 1995, and then launched in 96 as the JPA for a bond issue. The term stadium authority never came into play, even though that's what the JPA really is. If you think about it, look at how we've always done things, piecemeal. The Raiders issue. I mean, bringing them back from LA. Well, that was Ed De Silva and George Ucasin having their little meetings. Was there a constant report to the city council? No. Them. Two members of the private sector controlling a public organization. The issue with the city was, hey, where's the oversight? Because they're not reporting to us on a regular basis. But again, piecemeal. But then, hey, finally we get this organization. But does it change? No, it's still piecemeal. My Super Bowl effort, when I worked to form the bid to bring Super Bowl to Oakland, Ignacio Del Fuente, my friend who was the chair. So then he and Jerry Brown having secret meetings with the JPA, and Ignacio's representing the JPA, but I'm not in it, to talk about the proposal, the sponsorship plan that I created, that none other than Mike Lynch, when he was the senior vice president and head of global sponsorships for Visa, told me was a great plan. They didn't have me in the room to talk about it. Again, they're doing things piecemeal. So then they come back and say, hey, rather than, a formal review, we have a closed session meeting about it, right? And I'm in the meeting. This is all piecemeal. So then I get wind of it on the dais, the day of the vote. We don't see where you're going to get all this money from. Well, you know what? Look at the Super Bowl. All right. And the amount of money that was flowing around in Las Vegas, and the amount of money that's flowing around in Super Bowls before that. We would have had no problem getting a company to spend $30 million for control of the east side of the Coliseum for the Super Bowl. That was the plan, folks. Jeez. So my point is, we've been a structural mess for a long, long time. A long, long time. Okay. It's Casey Pratt. Oakland could have built a new stadium 24 years ago, but failed. Respect. Oakland's mayor and city council are turning Oakland into a failed city. Well, it's the structure. I don't put it on the mayor and city council. I put it on the structure, a structure that allows the mayor to fire at will, literally, the city administrator. And that little driver of the organization has a ripple effect that essentially causes people to say, well, hey, you know what? She's not popular. I better start seeking another job right now. Oh, and by the way, I just started last year. Okay. It's called instability, folks. That's what the problem is. We have rampant instability, and we're not doing anything about it. We have people over politicizing everything for fear that they're not going to win the next election, or worse, like maybe be found out that they're doing something illegal. And I'm not implying that anybody is, but I'm saying that there's a constant desire to say we're working on, not have you, and also not have you see the totality of what's going on. It's an anti-sunshine guys that we're in. All right, John Akala. Where do you think the Raiders would be playing right now if Al Davis were still alive? Oakland. Oakland. Yeah, I saw that piece about Davis regarding where he would be, but if Al were still alive, well, let me take that and throw up an asterisk since I am weighing this. But I think it depends on his health. If he had gotten to a point where he couldn't effectively make decisions, at that point he would have turned things over to Mark as he did. And so even though he was still alive, all right, and if Mark were able to convince his father, and I think he would have been able to convince his father that something that his dad, I'm certain, didn't see possible was possible. And what is that? That is a professional sports gambling and gaming environment in Las Vegas where corruption was rooted out by design. If he could convince his dad of that, then his dad would certainly have implored Jerry Jones to work with him, and they would have wound up in Las Vegas. So I'll say this, because I'm going to give Mark a ton of credit for pulling off something that none of us thought was possible. Let's face it, I didn't think so. Eric Grubman, then head of NFL properties, didn't think so. Mark did it. Okay? And I'm not going to take that away from him at all. Look at the results. Look at the results. Sure, there may be problems here and there. There always are. But look at what the Super Bowl did for Las Vegas. Now there's talk, or does Las Vegas wants to be in the rotation? How many cities get to say that? If you pay attention to this, I hope you see now how complex and yet how effective the Super Bowl is at marketing a city, and how great it would have been for the city of Oakland. Okay? As I tried to say to elected officials like Rebecca Kaplan, my friend, like Nate Miley, my friend, and others, the Super Bowl is about marketing your city. And the JPA is about preparing your facility to be the giant television studio for these activities. That's really the idea. Okay? That's really the idea. Stay in your lane, do your lane well. Stay in your lane, do your lane well. All right? Again, the strong mayor system as its design is breaking the city. It's not broken, it works, but it's breaking the city because it's not right for us. It was designed for Jerry Brown. Let's face it, it was Jerry Brown's version of strong mayor. It wasn't Oakland's version of strong mayor. It wasn't, hey, let's adjust this because, well, the mayor has a kind of a hinky power relationship with respect to the police and the city administration. Yeah, hinky. All right. The mayor should require 3 council votes to fire the city administrator, and we need to go back to calling the city administrator the city manager. I don't understand the nomenclature change anyway. I thought it was ridiculous. So I had to stumble over those words for a couple of years, brother. For what? For nothing. Just to indicate that there was a change. Really? All right. Okay. So I hope that answers your questions. All right. We are now at 124 east in the east, 1024 in the west. And I want to thank everybody for participating. Live long and prosper in your world. Please, if you haven't done so, subscribe to Zenny62 YouTube. I will be back to present my story regarding AESCG. It is not a pretty one. I'll be back in approximately 1 hour. Thank you. No, excuse me. I'll be back at 3:30 Eastern. Okay, so I'll be back at 3:30 Eastern, which is 12:30 out west. I need to put the finishing touches on this and then get it out there. It is quite an upsetting story. See ya.